Missing your uncle's funeral should be the least of your concerns. You best be hoping that you don't end up spending the night in a jail cell, I'll tell you what. Jesus H. Christ, it hot and also. Hey, listen, you probably wondering how I get myself in this predicament in the first place, right? Even more so, you probably saying, Foreign, what does have to do with crappy Caribbean character depictions in popular media? Well, you about to find out the same time my family about to find out, which is right now. So, top of the morning, big man, big woman, big non-binary folk them, hard go. I miss you. This story has trigger warnings for extreme cringe. I ain't talking about I'm talking about extreme cringe on behalf of yours truly. So if you can't handle an episode of The Office, then you probably want to go and skip to this chapter right now. I giving you a warning right now. Okay, we about to get on with the things then. I mean, assuming that you watched week before last video, that even feel weird saying. Assuming that you watched that video, you would understand why I had to urgently fly home. And if you ain't, then tap that right up there if you want to watch a big black man with a beard struggle with a very fragile handle of masculinity. But wait, hold on, I just catch. We ain't see each other in 2 weeks, and if this is your first video, then you ain't see me in 26 years, because that's how long I've been alive. In any event, I did miss you like conservatives them did miss the point. So, hey, drop one comment and we can catch up. Right, so I was in the back room at TSA, mere minutes away from missing my flight and breaking my family's collective heart by missing my uncle's funeral. But life wasn't always like this. Just hours before, I got a call that would indelibly change my day. In the wee hours of the morning, I saw my old man number pop up on my WhatsApp. And given the recent history of early morning calls, I wasn't too keen on answering this one. But when I finally did, it seemed like a standard call from my dad in the morning, till he casually asked me, what were my results for my COVID test? My eyes gone whiter than Woody Allen. I totally forgot to do a COVID visa, and without one, I couldn't even board my flight to the Bahamas. I stormed out the house like the Yanks them stormed the Capitol on the 6th of January. Never forget. Scouring this barren cornfield called Iowa, looking anywhere for a rapid antigen test. No one. Not even the cork-eye customer service rep were too jolly to walk, so they have to go and drive a scooter around Walmart. Nobody is do rapid antigen tests in Iowa. How is this America? And I can't find nobody to scrape my brain and tell me if I sick or if I tick. Finally, I found a PCR test done by a private company via the airport. Now armed with a COVID visa, I made my reservation for my final destination. But nobody, not even Lord Oculon himself, could foresee the skullduggery that I was about to endure. And the worst part of it is, it was me digging the skulls this time. Yes, I'm the body. The American Airlines representative had the complexion of raw toast and a scowl akin to that of Shapiro when he sat down with Malcolm Nance. I gave them my flight documents and they returned to me a face equivalent of that of a Windows error message. Like Sir, your passport is expired. Pardon me panic for a little second, I ain't gonna lie. I really, I had to have one of them Mr. Krabs. Like, I ain't gonna lie, that was me internally for a second. I didn't let them see my weakness. All I said in my head was, well, motherfuck still, you mean first it was the COVID test that I had to find, and now my passport expire. How I ain't noticed that? This must be a sign that I need to stay my Brillo pod bed in the States. But I know that I needed to get back to my family. So I quickly retorted, oh no. Anyway, I'm actually returning to renew my passport. Well, that's very convenient, sir, but I can't let you board this plane with an expired passport. Actually, I can travel to my home country to get my passport renewed. Their colleague came to whisper in their ear, and I could see the wrinkles whizzing with every word that our colleague says. Well, it would seem that you can actually go back to your home country so long as you get your passport renewed as soon as you get there. If vindicated was a person, that would be me. I must see bust a hot boy on them. I say, But new level, new devil, because I would shortly thereafter encounter yet another obstacle. Let me preface this by saying, I like to think that I'm self-aware. It's sad that it has come to this, but I dress a particular way when I go to the airport just so I don't get randomly selected, randomly profiled. Them random profiles when they lick your back right into the back room of the TSA and get feel up, molested up by a big burly man named Bob. And lo and behold, when I pulling out the gray containers to put my items and personal effects in there, I see out the corner of my eye the big burly man whose name was Marvin in this case, and I mentally and physically fortify myself to get feel up because, I know it's gonna happen. You know it's coming. But this time, I guess given the stress of the situation, and the circumstances, I think Panda that just sent me that picture where she drew me and everything, that was real sweet. Big up Panda, man, Sanda Panda, and, condolences because she just lost someone as well. I swear we losing people left and right. But like what I was saying, I really think I was taken off guard, Something happened because I made a terrible mistake. Maybe it's the stress. Maybe it's my Caribbean customs of being overly affectionate. Maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know. But I made a terrible mistake. I'm physically anguishing just recalling the situation for you. So please, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the almighty algorithm, my lord. Walk out the sensor after throwing up the rock, you know what I'm saying? And, the TSA agent is on the next side of the sensor. This portly gentleman, I ain't got nothing wrong with the portly. He's a portly fella right now, but this portly gentleman named Marvin with Oakley shades on and a beard long like Gandalf. He extends his arm, of course, to pat me down, you know what I'm saying? But for some reason in that moment, I didn't take it as that. I took it as him offering his arms for a hug. So I come towards this man and I begin to, I just say, come, bring it in. Listen, Moro, listen, this man gets so scared, this man flicking, he back up. And then two fellas descended upon me and grabbed me so quick. They asked me what the hell was I doing? And honestly, at that point, I didn't even know myself. I was dissed and dismissed. Well, not actually dismissed. They actually took me back to the, the timeout corner, the TSA agent cubicle where there's, processing and thing like that after you do stupid things in the airport. And then they went through this line of question like, was I doing something to distract them from something else going on? Was I trying to attack, the TSA agent? What was I doing? And of course, I told them I was a little scatterbrained because I'm going on a bereavement trip. So they looked at my documents and then they began to comment on the expiration of my passport. And they said, give them a second because they're getting a lot of fraudulent passports coming in, so they're gonna run this through the system. I had assumed that they had run it through the system a long time ago, but I guess they must have another system that they wanted to run it through, just run it like Chris Brown. Ooh, I don't like Chris Brown, never mind, anyway. And I was fine with the extra processing and thing like that, because as a law-abiding citizen, Ransford James, I don't do no things untoward, so they wasn't gonna find anything anyway. And I understand that they just doing their job, they're just doing their job ultimately, just like Karen was doing her job at the beginning. The only problem that I did have is the fact that my flight leaves in 30 minutes. So, I would like for them to, do whatever they're doing rather quickly. So I very kindly exhorted these gentlemen, just reminded them, a friendly reminder that, hey, I have a flight, in 30 minutes, wheels up, you know what I'm saying? They got offended. And then suddenly they were just like, something don't seem right here. Something just don't seem white here. We can't find anything on you, sir. What are you exactly doing here in the States, if I may ask? I tell them that I do political research in Iowa. So then all of a sudden I see my bag being carried by some, big burly accomplice. And they basically were saying that this protein powder that I had in my bag looks suspicious. Your boy foreign don't miss no meals. And I definitely gotta have some protein. I stay strapped with the protein powder. But, they were saying that this wasn't no protein powder. No, not at all. They were saying that this was something else in a protein powder jug that looked like protein powder. I say, big man, you really think I'm stupid enough to go and smuggle something other than protein powder in a protein powder jug on my check-on? I was getting a little annoyed. I was tired, and I was bereft. So I was basically just saying, sir, please, can I please go to my flight? Y'all have seen enough time. Can I please go to my flight? It leaves in about 20 minutes. And then they said, well, your passport is saying here that you are supposed to be returning to the Bahamas to renew your passport. Why is it that you're now saying that you're on a bereavement trip, sir? Why didn't you just go to the Bohemian Embassy, sir? You didn't have to go all the way to the Bahamas unless you're going for something else. So I replied rather cattily. I was like, for one, I'm not from the Republic of Bohemia. I'm from the Bahamas. And two, the nearest Bahamian embassy is in Chicago, and I'm in Iowa, so I just say, I might as well just, go to the Bahamas since I wanted to go there anyway. I say, are you getting aggressive with me, sir? I say, Lord, this it right here, this it right here. I about to join the rankings of all of these videos that I be seeing on Public Freakout. I told him, I said, sir, listen, I'm just trying to rush to my flight before I miss it. Missing your uncle's funeral should be the least of your concerns. You best be hoping that you don't end up spending the night in a jail cell, I'll tell you what. So it was very apparent that he was trying to intimidate me because there's nothing that I could have been going to jail for. And he claimed that you could go to jail for having a fraudulent passport. So here's the part right here that make my mouth drop, right? I showed them my other forms of identification, which includes an Iowan driver's license, and this is the important one, an American passport. Listen. As soon as he saw my picture in front of that little eagle that you see in the passport, this boy whole demeanor changed. My boy was all like, well, damn, Negro, why didn't you say that before? It was like the American passport was literal currency for them. It was like it had the secret code, like open flicking sesame, chicken. And as I sat on that plane, I was ruminating over how my Bahamian passport wasn't enough. How simply a wave of an American passport is an imperial and haughty wave of no contest. My question is why though? You know, the Bahamas is literally the premier destination of the entire world. Why are we still seeing through the hackneyed eyeglasses of the Cold War, which leads to prejudice, stereotypes, and a litany of other terrible characterizations of Caribbean culture, which we talked about at length on this channel already, but have we spoken about Caribbean cartoon characters? You know, cartoon characters that have Caribbean heritage or might just be Caribbean in total. How are they portrayed? Do they suffer from the same issues and dalliances that people that portray Caribbean people and Caribbean culture do? So in the interest of levity, I've compiled a list of Caribbean characters and I'm going to rank them on this tier list according to their accuracy. Alright, let me do the little green text thing from 4chan, you know what I'm saying? Alright, be me, fat, dark, and ashy. Happiness forever eludes you. Parents then drag you away from the safety of your desktop computer where you torrent FL Studio on dial-up connection. Take me to see this movie about lions or something like that. I actually enjoy it. For a brief moment, I enjoy being outside. Thus a core memory is formed that I can fondly look back at. Fast forward, be me again. Oh darkness, my old friend. I revisit my happy memories like that when I went to see the movie on lions. I watch it again, but older me now realizes that there are some things that I didn't pick up on before. I realize that the supporting character has a Jamaican accent. Now nostalgia is ruined by the red pill of realization. Still don't know what this is? You still don't know who we talking about? The name stands for friend. Lives in a tree. He's literally a mandrill. The character I have in mind is none other than Rafiki, and I already know what all you're about to say. But somehow, some way, they found it fit to have a Jamaican monkey in West Africa. Why? Now when Rafiki would sing Asante Sana, something banana, you know, I was all like, okay, that's Swahili, you know, so yeah, they're in West Africa, that's Swahili. But then when he would speak, I just kept on saying that this sounded like Chet Hanks trying to be Jamaican. Like he didn't sound like an actual Jamaican, but he sounded like someone, you know, from Brixton with a Jamaican grandfather. You know what I'm saying? So lo and behold, Rafiki was voiced by Robert, you know, I don't want to butcher this man's name because we literally talking about, you know, saying things accurately. So I don't want to butcher this man's name. You know, this is right here. And apparently, he was having fun trying to be Jamaican or something like that. Then realized later on that it was a really poor attempt at a Jamaican accent. Now, naturally, of course, Robert is not Jamaican. And I'm not even gonna harangue on this for too long because this is extremely on brand for American media. It's easier to bastardize a particular culture rather than having someone from that culture portray it themselves. And another reason why I won't hang on this for too long is because there's far more inconsistencies regarding Rafiki. Rafiki was played by a woman in the subsequent musical, which is probably the best of all of these inaccuracies because then at least you have some women inside the cast. Despite being a mandrill, Rafiki is constantly referred to as a baboon, which would make sense because he looks like a baboon. Plus, mandrills aren't even endemic to sub-Saharan Africa. There's a bunch of reasons to give Rafiki the side eye, you know what I'm saying? But this is my biggest gripe with this character. You see, Rafiki was supposed to be a cheetah, but somewhere down the line, they decided to turn this cheetah into a mandrill or a monkey or whatever. So tell me why, when they realized that Rafiki was a mandrill, tell me why he had to be Jamaican after that. Like, why? Why? What about this mandrill says Jamaican? Yeah, he gotta be Caribbean. He's a monkey, so he gotta be Caribbean. They in Africa, right? And as bad as it sounds, it would make more sense for them to be African rather than have a Jamaican accent. Because at least then they could say that it's geographically accurate. They went out of their way to make this monkey Jamaican. And they didn't even have the respect to articulate the accent and patois accurately. They just slap on a Jamaican accent very sloppily onto this boy and just say, yeah, that's good enough for government's work. In fact, they give this boy a Grammy for his portrayal of Rafiki. And from the Academy or the Grammys or whatever you want to call them did that, I realized that they could kill. These fellas could kill. If they could see what happened on this screen in Lion King and then say, yeah, that boy is deserving of a Grammy for what he did and what the directors did in making him Jamaican and everything, making it monkey Jamaican, I realized right then that they could kill. They full-blown murderers. So for that, I have to go and put Rafiki in detail, you know, detail. D for damn, you all fellas going to hell on a gas truck. Now, I had no idea this show even existed until my gal put me onto it. And it's pretty decent, you know. Apart from what I'm about to talk about, it's pretty decent. Did you know that Eddie Murphy, yes, Eddie Murphy, had a stop animation show? Yes, he did. Isn't that amazing? That's great. 3 seasons of life in the Chicago Cabrini Green Housing Projects. Thurgood, voiced by Murphy himself, is the cantankerous superintendent. Stands by his wife Muriel. Not this Muriel, but another Muriel. As they navigate life in a housing community full of vibrant characters. One of which is a character affectionately referred to as Haiti Lady. And after some digging, you know, some skull digging, we find that Haiti Lady actually has a name, even though they rarely call her that, you know. She has a name. It's Garcelle Dupree. And she's literally depicted as the resident voodoo queen in the Cabrini Green projects. Woo! So yeah, the obvious issue with this depiction is that Garcelle Dupree, otherwise known as Haiti Lady, mostly known as Haiti Lady, is pretty much just reduced to the Haitian stereotype of a voodoo practitioner. And if you ain't seen a video on Obe and voodoo and things like that, then top right up there. But guess what? In summary, it basically is a big part of Haitian culture. But it ain't the only thing about the culture. It's like every character with Caribbean heritage gotta be debased into the most basal common denominator understanding of their stereotypes. Like Calypso Azili from The Amazing Spider-Man, who is depicted as a voodoo priestess primarily, and secondly, the love interest being used by the Craven Hunter, which also has some indirect commentary about how women only exist in the context of men in these early depictions of cartoons. Like damn, they ain't have no other characteristics but being in love. Then you have Brother Voodoo, who literally got voodoo in his name. Hailing from Haiti, he is the brother of Daniel Drum, who is known as Dr. Voodoo. So I don't know, Stanley, you know, I'm beginning to see a theme with all of these Caribbean characters that you got here. You got an obsession with Obe and the occults. But you don't even have to look that far, you know. When looking back at the PJs, which we were talking about initially, Haiti Lady is not the only Caribbean character there. They also have one other Caribbean character, Rastaman. And they ain't even give this boy a name as far as I can tell. They just give this boy some weed, and that was pretty much the entirety of his identity. His interaction with the audience and the content is essentially just walking with a weed cloud surrounding him. So given that, I have to judge the Caribbean characters in the PJs in the detail. D for dead wrong, because there's far more things to Caribbean culture of Haiti and Jamaica than weed and voodoo. Now this character comes with much conflict in my heart, because a part of me really liked this character, you know. I really love this character. But the other part in me murder the fetching love story of a mermaid longing to be a human. It has everything from nail-biting stakes to indelible scores with incredible songwriting. But it also has none other than Horatio, Thelonious, Ignatius, Crustaceous, Sebastian. That's a lot of names. I got a lot of names. He got more names. The Trinidadian crab surfing musician, all kind of things. He's a Renaissance man. Sebastian may not be perfect, but he does have my heart. Mostly because they claim that he's a Trinidadian crab, and I rarely see Trinidad and Tobago depicted in popular media. Mind you know, it's a large country that dominates the cultural conversations alongside Haiti and Jamaica. But the latter two countries have such a larger cultural profile, and TNT doesn't really have that distinctive cultural export, in my opinion. I mean, the world know Jamaica for Usain, for Mali, for reggae, and the world also know Haiti, unfortunately, for intimacy and bloodshed, earthquakes, hurricanes, and voodoo. But I don't really think the people outside of the Caribbean know TNT for soca and chutney and all the other things that TNT is great for. There's a lot of interesting quirks about Sebastian. Like the only reason why he has a Trinidadian accent in the first place, I mean a semblance of a Trinidadian accent, is because Samuel Wright couldn't do a Jamaican accent. And I sort of appreciate that Samuel Wright admitted that he was out of his depth in trying to do a Jamaican accent. But what I don't understand is why did he think that he could flippantly switch between two Caribbean countries? But there was still a bunch of inconsistencies, like the fact that Sebastian had a reggae album. I think he had like 2 reggae albums. And he's supposed to be Trinidadian, you know, and I know he had some calypso numbers too, which would be more Trinidadian, but he all over the place. He like Kong Salad. He mixed right up. But I was impressed to see that Shaggy played Sebastian in Little Mermaid Live, even though he's Jamaican. But you know, hey, go on then, Disney. Look at you. Big yourself up for doing the bare minimum. And of course, I teased you all this topic by asking you all what you all thought Sebastian was, and this was your responses for the most part. Fun fact, I always got the vibe that Sebastian was gay. So when Titus Burgess played him on the Broadway special, I was just like, yeah, they understood the assignment. They understood. And considering all of those things, I have to give Sebastian the B tier. You know what I'm saying? I gotta put him in the B tier, cause B for, you know, you ain't that bad. Now, Cartoon Network was the superior station for cartoons. Don't at me. This ain't an argument. These are facts. Mostly because of the adult animation experience in Adult Swim. But also their IPs pretty much surpassed all of the skullduggery that we would see on Nick, other than SpongeBob. SpongeBob is the best cartoon ever. But, you know, Nick and the dreaded Disney. Oh, look, I don't know what y'all was doing over there, Disney. I'm glad that I didn't have Disney. We didn't have access to Disney in the Bahamas when I was growing up. And I see that as a plus. But the character we're about to discuss is a part of the new gen of CN. You know, when they suddenly rebranded Cartoon Network from Cartoon Network to CN, it was a change symbolic of a lot of things like aesthetics and also quality, in my opinion. But mind you, now there was some gems to come out of this era of cartoons. This show, however, is not one of them. Total Drama Island. 22 teenagers fighting over 100,000 can in a disgusting island in Ontario. Who can forget these nuanced characters full of depth and development? Especially DJ, voiced by I think it's Clay Bennett, a Canadian actor. And DJ is allegedly Jamaican. Allegedly? I say that because there's absolutely no indication that there was any intention for this character to be Jamaican whatsoever. In the original series, Camp TV, DJ was portrayed as a large African American that fit the early 2000s rapper stereotype. His name DJ, probably referring and alluding to him being a DJ, maybe. But somewhere down the line, they say that this boy need to be Jamaican. They just figure this out, like they just say, hey, Jamaican. Which is fine, I guess. You know, DJ didn't really make much mention of his Jamaicanness throughout the show, and I didn't mind that actually. Pretty much just existed as a Canadian with Jamaican heritage, despite the fact that he was apparently born in Jamaica, whereas the voice actor was, you know, born in Canada. But DJ was pretty much far removed from his Jamaican ancestry. Ergo, he may have literally only been born in Jamaica, like I was literally only born in the States, which is a valid experience. Just like Tinua, Tiana, and Melina all have Jamaican heritage. But apart from T, you know, sprinkling some patois on her commentary, you would never know. You would never know that these people have Jamaican heritage, which isn't even cultural sublimation or assimilation on their part. They really just only have some familial ties or heritage to these particular Caribbean countries. Thus, it would be kind of odd to expect them to be as overtly Caribbean as someone like me, on the other hand. Sure, it would be nice for them to acknowledge their Caribbean heritage, which they do from time to time, but their experience is uniquely North American. Just like DJ, his Jamaicanness is Jamaican heritage. And that's it, just heritage. Now, when it kind of gets annoying is when they make reference to his Jamaicanness in the circumstances surrounding him. Like the episode Jamaica Me Sweat. Do I really need to do this? Why did they have a bobsled event? It's like they were trying to channel their Cool Runnings, a movie that I've already dragged on this channel before. They make reference to DJ's favorite genre being Jamaican reggae as opposed to other types of reggae, which there are. I mean, they got skinhead ska, right? But that ain't reggae. And then they also make reference to his favorite dish being his mother's chickpea roti. Or roti, I know, I'm not Trinidadian, but you know, it's a Trinidadian dish. I think it's roti. My bad, like Rottweiler roti. I guess DJ's only real offense is being an average character in an average show. Thus, we must rank him at C tier. Not for satisfactory, but for C, this the same Now this next show, I used to love. And I still do, you know, I still do. I love them. And that's why I have to drag them. Early television would take a lot of risks because there really wasn't no standard to abide by in the first place. You had macabre and disgusting shows like Invader Zim, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and one of my favorites, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. From Billy the Dunce to Mandy the manic psychopath. Then you have their bag of bones, Grim. Now the story is that Grim was supposed to have a British accent, but when Greg Eagles was hired, he gave him a Swedish accent, which apparently sounded more Jamaican than Swedish. Thus, the Jamaican Grim Reaper was born. Or died. I don't know how Grim Reaperness works. Bound to Billy and Mandy after Grim loses in a limbo match. You see, we can't even get around this. Let's just get right to it. You see, they had a Jamaican Grim Reaper doing a limbo. Not that many references to Grim's Jamaicanness in this entire series. The accent is pretty much simply used as a comedic vehicle. And honestly, it does the job. It does the job quite well. I think Grim's Jamaican portrayal, while not having much to do with the culture at all, has one of the funniest usages of the Jamaican accent I've heard on television. And I appreciate the fact that they don't, you know, give him a blunt or something like that to smoke to just like, you know, egg on that stereotype. They use his Jamaican accent as an enhancement rather than the focal point for his character. Kind of like DJ, only difference is that it was actually well done here and, you know, it was actually an inspired usage of the Jamaican accent. Only gripe that I have with Max Amos or Adams or whatever his name is that one episode, you know, that episode where Grim turns into a human being and they made Grim white? I mean, there are white Jamaicans, but why did he have to be white? So I gotta give Grim a B for Bumbaras. Now this one in particular is complicated because he is such a likable character. You're just always rooting for this character, but he suffers for some stereotypical, you know, flaws. Let's just rip the band-aid right off with this one, all right? Before he was a bureaucrat, he was a world-class limboer whose arch nemesis was Barbados Slim, who did not have a Bajan accent. We're talking about none other than Hermes Conrad. So let's get right to it. Limbo. Why does limbo have to be associated with Jamaica and in extension Caribbean culture all the time? Why? Tell me why. Tell me why. Like why all the adverts got, you know, this white boy trying to dance and shake up himself underneath a limbo with a Hawaiian shirt and a flower necklace on him. Tell me why. You know what I'm talking about. You know the same brother that doing the awkward Mayo shuffle underneath the limbo. You know what I'm saying? Why? Tell me why. Then there's the somewhat harmful characteristic that Hermes had because he had a medal in the sport. And the sport was sex. The claim being that sex was an Olympic sport in, you know, 3000 CE or whatever it is. And while it may seem benign, it goes back to that over-sexualization of black and, in this case, Afro-Caribbean men. So when gals outside of the culture come to us and they expecting us to be ramen and jamming and things like that, it can sometimes set an unrealistic expectation for black men, and especially Afro-Caribbean men, to perform sex in a particular way that not all Caribbean men perform. But moreover, this stereotype also lends credence to the idea that we have all kind of pick-me-and babies running around the place because we're overly promiscuous. Which I'll admit that the black community in general has this social phenomena that we can actually unpack in a different video altogether. Thankfully, these stereotypes only served as an origin story for Hermes and it didn't permeate through the entirety of the series. In fact, they actually have a self-aware moment where Hermes addresses that Jamaicans have other hobbies when Amy Wong says something to the effect of, that's all Jamaicans do is limbo and things like that. You do have the stereotype that Hermes is a marijuana smoker, an avid marijuana smoker at that. So much so that he tried to buy, you know, some weed from Thomas Jefferson. When he was trying to do a Sean Paul, like legalize it, when, you know, Bender was talking about, you know, legalizing robosexual marriage and things like that. It's casual and reoccurring references to Hermes's marriage with marijuana, which is a steady reminder that stereotypes sell. Begging the question, who's the problem in this? You know, the people that are making this art and this content and this media, or the people consuming it? Because if we continue to consume it, then there's going to be a demand for it. Had we probably tanked the ratings for some of these shows that depict these terrible depictions of Caribbean culture, then, they probably wouldn't give it to us anymore. The reason why there's such a prevalence in it is because someone's watching it. Someone out there is watching it and binging it. Which leads me to giving not Hermes, his name is Hermes, giving Hermes a C, and putting him in the C tier. Most depictions of Caribbean culture is typically to foil or support the main character. Rarely do you actually have Caribbean protagonists or even Caribbean characters that transcend their Caribbean stereotypes, which informs the worldview of people who have tangible consequences on our lives. When a white boy grows up on mildly racist cartoons, sometimes overtly racist cartoons, then goes into the workforce with main character syndrome and sees people that look like me simply as NPCs. It's of no surprise that ignorance of certain cultures are the prevailing winds of thought for the majority of people. And it's of no surprise that I get held up in the back room with TSA until I pull out an American passport. It's a crime of negligence, sometimes maliciously negligent, actually going out of their way to get things wrong. And there will still be some people, maybe watching this very video, claiming that this is an overreaction. And that is simply because they do not prioritize the authenticity and accurate representation of my culture. But if you leave one star off the Star-Spangled Banner, pandemonium will ensue. If you dare utter, let alone teach in schools, CRT, that will actually show the representation of minorities and how they were treated throughout history, pandemonium will ensue. Blood will spill in the streets. But when a big black man with a beard comes for their problematic cartoon faves and they're claiming that, I'm trying to attack the status quo and these beautiful depictions of American art, that's a problem. That, I'm overreacting, and they gaslight you into thinking that, hey, nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with Cool Runnings, nothing wrong with Luke Cage. But there's actually something very wrong with Luke Cage and Cool Runnings, as I've discussed in this video right here, which if you have not watched as of yet, what the hell are you doing, big man and woman and non-binary folk, then please click right there, I can see you over there.